Go Who's and welcome to the 4-3-4 defense. My name is Deuce Prince. I'm a Charlottesville, Virginia native, lifelong UVA football fan, and former college offensive lineman. And today on the show, we have a very, very special guest, Vice President of Basketball and Events at Athletes Advantage, Nima Omidvar. Nima, how you doing, man?
Dude, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And first off, we have a connection, or you have a connection with one of our best football players last year at the University of Virginia. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to play in Brazil because he's going to go on to the NFL. When you were at North Carolina Central, you overlapped with one Jamari Taylor.
Good player. Good player. Yeah, I can't say I did anything but maybe pass him on campus once or twice, but did go to the games and watch him. So I was not surprised to see how productive he was um, with you guys. And quite honestly, some of the context clues that led us to saying, you know what, we need to get Virginia in part of this game. We knew you guys had good evaluation, and that's not going to magically change overnight. But big time player and was really fun watching him play last year.
Absolutely. And Nima, you are one of the driving forces behind one of the bigger stories in college football, if not the biggest in college scheduling, at least. Athletes Advantage is really the driving force behind the University of Virginia and North Carolina State opening their season in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. How did the idea of a college football game in Brazil start? I'm sure that's what most fans are wondering. Where did that idea begin to germinate?
Well, with all great ideas, you got to have a bunch of folks saying that's crazy. Why would you even try? But at Athlete Advantage, our mission is to drive revenue and creative solutions for athletic departments. And this was not something that we just woke up, rolled out of bed, and said, "Hey, let's go give it a whirl." This was over a decade of talking about it, hearing about it, albeit not thorough investigations for the first 8 years,
Mhm.
but at least 8 years of solid talk where very trusted confidants and who are now, partners in this game with Brazil sports business, saying that there's a very robust American football demand and popularity in that market, in that country.
Mhm.
Had to see it with our own eyes, which we did. We went down and vetted it in Brazil. We are aligned with one of the former commissioners of the BFL, the Brazilian Football Americana League. And that league used to have up to 60 teams,
Oh my
professional
goodness.
American football teams. They, since COVID, downsized a little bit. I believe they're
Okay.
at 32 now. But the infrastructure is there, the demand is there, the sport is growing in popularity. And so on that front, that's part of how that came about, until we really went through all the particulars on our side here in the United States with Athlete Advantage and determined that this would be a great opportunity to present to different athletic departments at the P4 level to see if we could be the next week zero marquee college football game, which we now are.
That's awesome. As we just got off of St. Patrick's Day, obviously Ireland is kind of the progenitor of the international game, and so was there a lot of overlap in the thought process or in the strategy, or is it such a different environment that you kind of need to approach it with completely fresh eyes?
Well, great question. There certainly is overlap. The
Hmm.
the the function of taking a sport from the United States that's not commonly played with the equipment that we're used to and the infrastructure that we're used to. As you can see behind me, this is a soccer stadium as photographed. So a lot of that stuff has to be brought in, implemented. There's definitely from a tourism perspective, a lot of thought process that needs to go into it. So we certainly gleaned some of their expertise from afar. It wasn't like we picked up the phone and said, "Hey, help us out." At the end of the day, we're essentially competitors. Although there's a healthy respect from us specifically to what they've been able to achieve, and I wouldn't say we're wagging a finger at them saying, hey, we're better or worse. We respect what they're doing, and I would imagine they respect what we're doing because we know how hard it can be. But I'd be lying if I didn't say watching the Georgia Tech Florida State game on repeat maybe 1,000 times at different restaurants and establishments that just happen to have ACC network on, and every time you look up, you're like, "There's that game again! Oh my God, there's that game!" So from that visibility standpoint,
Mhm.
that game is something that's very noticeable and very desired to be watched. For them, it was the only show in town. Now
Right.
we are part of a weekend of a slate of games that are going to be really appetizing for college football fans. We do feel that this is, without question, the best game on that slate.
I can't wait. I mean, when this got announced, there was the initial huh, and then the more I kind of dug in, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense for college football in Brazil, but what specifically stood out about Virginia for this game? Because I'm sure Virginia fans asked two questions. Brazil, and then why Virginia, why this matchup? What made sense for it on your end for Virginia to head down to Rio?
Yeah, well, there's a couple strong factors, and we feel really good that we made these decisions, and it has kind of fallen our way. When we started these conversations, it was before the season kicked off, last year, and so at that point, you guys are 0-0, NC State 0-0, and we don't know what kind of season you'll have, but. We did have some extensive conversations with General Manager Tyler Jones, who had been part of an international experience before. That was
Yes.
important to us because he had some understanding and could teach us some things as well to make sure this was a success. I'd also point out that at NC State, Deputy Athletic Director Todd Stansberry formerly had been part of a international experience with UCF and Georgia Tech. So there were two schools that had a pre-existing game that had very influential people in their athletic department that understood the scope of work that was going to go down. So that
Mhm.
was a big factor. Two, as I just mentioned, the game was already scheduled. And so we knew, like, okay, well, we don't have to go find two teams and bring them together. Football games are scheduled for years in advance. So that would have
Yeah.
been complicated. This was an opportunity where we say, hey, let's see if we can kind of take a ready-made game. And that was really our hope and thought process as we went throughout the market. The other piece was the basic really assumption, but it's kind of proven out to be true in a lot of the men's, women's basketball, and college football that schools and institutions that have a very high academic profile, like Virginia does, like Vanderbilt, like Cal, Stanford, high level schools are proving to be very well suited in this NIL space. And that's going to just lend it a little bit more credence to having better programs kind of down the road. And so
Mhm.
we just kind of kept our ear to the ground, understanding. Again, I come from the basketball world, seeing what Ryan Odom was doing on the basketball front. We weren't shocked that he was doing that, but it's like,
Yeah.
okay, they're fielding a really good team. We know kind of what it would take to get that team. There must be something special happening underneath the hood in Charlottesville that
Yes.
will ensure that this continues to happen that way. And then, truth be told, Coach Elliott was a big piece. I mean, he's had success in a big way in a
Mhm.
lot of different capacities, both as a head coach and as a coordinator. And so you start adding all this stuff up, and call it dumb luck, call it whatever. But boy, the whole season, as this conversation went on, it was just making us more and more excited and proud to be aligned with Virginia.
And you don't have to poo-poo NC State for me on this podcast. I enjoy the program that they run. Garrett Tujay, their offensive line coach there, when I was debating walking on at UVA, he would have been my offensive line coach, and he's now at NC State. CJ Bailey, they got him back. So this is going to be objectively a really good game.
Really good game. Really good game. Yeah, it's going to be exciting for everybody involved.
Absolutely. And this is an area of athletics and entrepreneurship in a way, and then also kind of right up your alley. You mentioned you're from the basketball world. You've kind of lived in that Raleigh to DC corridor for most of your career.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a big piece of it too, Deuce. I did coach at NC State, so I knew also how that fan base is and travels.
Yes.
I'm from the DMV. Lived in all parts of the D, the M, and the V. Used to coach at Paul VI High School in Fairfax, Virginia. I had family that went to UVA. My first ever college basketball game was at the University of Virginia. I've been to Scott Stadium, as a high school kid, where it was just a lot of fun. So I had opportunity from my perspective to see unbelievable fan bases that were working at a high cylinder. So you give them those fans an opportunity like this to be showcased on a world stage, then we really expect them to take advantage of that opportunity.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring that up because for some of the international games or some of the other locationary games, they think, oh, it's just someone picking two schools at random. Whereas, like as you mentioned before we started recording, you had brothers that went to Virginia, you coached at NC State. You kind of know the vibe that's going into these schools, and it was a well thought out decision.
Yeah, yeah, and we're very, very fortunate. Really, when you start peeling back the layers of a decision like this, there's a lot that obviously goes into it. But the people that are going to be steering the ship for the institutions are so crucial to our success as the event. But then, just for the universities overall kind of well being in terms of how they get to be portrayed throughout the world. Everyone that we've interacted with in the department has been highly professional and just to put it very bluntly, big time.
Yeah.
They understand their roles. They execute them at a high level, and that's something that we did not necessarily see in every single conversation that we had. And so when we were present, and I won't mention the games that we passed on, but we were at a moment where we had to make a decision between multiple institutions. And, this game was the one that we ultimately said, this has got to be the one to go down to Rio de Janeiro.
Absolutely. And, I think that for fans who were a little bit hesitant, obviously Dr. Carla Williams was a massive factor in this. And if any athletic directors had a coming out party this year on the work that they've done in the groundwork, then it's Carla Williams who did an outstanding job. The football program having 11 wins for the first time ever. As you mentioned, Coach Odom having a great season. Baseball, softball, everything's kind of hitting on high gear. And I'm sure she was a heavy part in this process.
Yeah, Dr. Williams was a big part of it. Stephen Pritzker, which is also in the athletic department, and then even on the football operations staff, Katie Gusto, who has been down to Rio with us and seen everything firsthand. Sometimes some of these unsung heroes are doing a lot of the heavy lift. The decision ultimately lies on some of your higher ups, but there's so many people within this athletic department that are working. We do a weekly Zoom with both institutions and kind of go through a plethora of items. And there's 20 or so folks that are actively working behind the scenes to make this event a success on the UVA side.
Mhm.
Really impressive the organization that's going on in Charlottesville.
That's awesome. And, speaking of the logistics of this game, you have the stadium that Virginia will be playing in, Nilton Santos Stadium. For those that don't know, Nilton Santos Stadium is the home of Botafogo. I hope I'm pronouncing that
Yep, you
correctly.
got it.
One of the legend, one of like the old stable clubs in Brazil. And as you can see behind Nima, it's a pretty legit venue. Yeah,
There
I
it is.
mean,
Get a nice look. Looks a lot like the Seattle Seahawks stadium on its architecture. So
ooh,
if you
okay.
put it side by side, first time I was there, I was like, this looks familiar. And then watching the Seahawks in the playoffs, I was like, that's it. There it is. It's our stadium. It was the site, as you could see with this blue track behind me. It was the site for the track and field events in the 2016
Oh.
Olympics. And so that does give a unique juxtaposition and an opportunity for us to create some extra activation and kind of fan engagement on and around the field. There's
Mhm.
also, as you can see over my right shoulder, there's a big gap here, right? So that is they took about 20,000 bleacher seats out of the stadium after the Olympics.
Mhm.
That concourse area is going to be actually where we host the tailgate for the fans that purchase our packages inside of the stadium. And so they won't have to deal with, where do I go to maybe have a little bit of a tailgate and have a little bit of fun. We're going to have a UVA side and an NC State side inside the stadium 3 hours before kickoff. Buses will bring everybody inside the gates. Tickets are actually facial recognition in Brazil. That's the
Whoa.
technology that they use for anything over 20,000 people. It's very
Huh.
easy. It takes less than a minute to sync it up on your phone. And so you'll be able to use your facial recognition, walk right in, and then just go tailgate, have yourself a good time, and go join your fellow Wahoos out in the crowd and enjoy a great game.
Absolutely. And, the one thing I thought of when you were mentioning all the logistics, this is kind of a random question. Where do you get the goalposts?
Yeah,
Do
no,
do
so
Virginia or NC State volunteer their goalpost?
no, that'd be nice. It'd be good. We're gonna construct them in Brazil. So
Okay.
there are goalposts that are floating around in Brazil for these games. However, the
Ah,
diameter of the posts, the heights, and all that are not to NCAA specs. One of our consultants of the game, she was the number one operations person for all the games in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So she understands and knows and how to source building a goalpost in Brazil. So we'll build goalposts in Brazil. As you may know, there's also going to be an NFL game in Brazil, and so there's going to be more and more goalposts popping up throughout the country of Brazil. But beyond that, they've got everything else. This stadium is perfectly well suited to hang a net for the kick. We'll be adding a play clock right into the sight line of the quarterback. So all the other elements that go into a college football game will be easily implemented. The goalpost, of course, was the most complicated.
I can imagine as anyone who's watched Pablo Torre's video on how to tear down a goalpost, it's a little bit more complicated than just sticking it into the ground.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
And then when it comes to the actual environment in Brazil, do you think there is a synergy, as anyone even who casually watches soccer knows, Brazil is it's the SEC of soccer fans. Like it's an intense environment. Do you think that's going to translate well? I can imagine it will translate well over to college football, that like festival atmosphere almost.
For sure. So I went to the NFL game between the Chiefs and the Chargers and just wanted to really kind of observe and absorb everything that went in that game. I would say in that game, it was 85% Brazilian, 15% American.
Wow.
There was all 32 teams represented in jersey form. Okay. It's a very much a jersey wearing culture. So
Yeah.
I can certainly see a lot of folks buying UVA gear just to say, "Hey, I'm going to cheer for them this game," or conversely for the Wolfpack. The atmosphere was definitely like a thirst for just excitement. Like we just want to see a great game. Now, I've
Yeah.
also been to a Brazilian national team game while doing all these journeys. Been to several of the club games. The energy for these games is second to none. Normally in Brazil, if it's a rivalry game, they don't even permit alcohol consumption once the game starts to ensure that nothing goes crazy. Our
Right.
game, similar to the NFL, does have a special permit to allow some consumption. So if you're coming down, you can have a beer or two. But the energy is just going to be looking for the next best play,
Hmm.
and there will be a party atmosphere. That's one thing I can assure you. Both through the programming of the game, through ourselves and Virginia, because it is Virginia's home game, so they are going to be able to write the script and kind of
Oh, okay.
dictate some of the exciting elements that will happen throughout the game. But you could expect us to have the drum line going throughout the game, similar to what will be happening in a Brazil national soccer team game. You could expect the bands for both institutions to put on a show pregame and halftime. You can expect the fans from the Brazilian public to be really engaged and excited to see not just big plays, but how do cheerleaders perform? All of the elements of American culture are really they're really eager to consume it throughout
Mhm.
this game because it's something that aspirational maybe not is the right word, but it's something that through movies and culture they're constantly seeing, and this is a chance to like really experience it and taste it firsthand right in front of them.
I'm sure there's stuff we take for granted in the experience of going to a Division 1 football game that is for someone that does not go to those games regular. This is their first time. It's going to be a whole experience. And I was just thinking before we started recording, the tailgate scene is going to be legit with the Brazilians cooking, right?
Yeah, so one thing you could expect to come back from Brazil at least 5 to 10 pounds heavier because food is no shortage. So within the tailgate, okay, so here we got behind me, we got this whole concourse area we're going to tailgate. So on literally right behind, right where I'm pointing right now, there'll
Uh-huh.
be that's where our VIP tailgate's going to be. There, you could expect to have a hosted experience with food and beverage included. So we're talking carving stations like you would see at a Fogo de Chao, beer, you name it. Some VIP seating, plush style seating, and we'll have that open up until halftime. And then the rest of the space will be cornhole toss and other types of American elements that Brazilians will like to just kind of observe how Americans are interacting and doing. But there's more than just food. I mean, you've got the karacha drink, which is a rum style drink that's very sugary, very sweet,
Hmm.
very, very good. You've got all different types of elements that us as Americans, when we go to this experience, will come away saying, "Man, that was awesome."
It's going to be a great cultural exchange, I imagine, because there's for Americans going to that game, there's going to be just as much that we're learning as the Brazilians are learning about college football. Because I'm sure for fans that will do both, they come away with with what Americans know that the game is similar. It's still a 100-yard field, but it's different.
Yeah, and during that NFL game, you could tell there's some people that are like, not really sure of what's happening. There's some diehards that are living in dying off each play. I will say that in that game, the PA announcer was almost exclusively speaking in Portuguese. Our game will be both in Portuguese and English because obviously we're going to have more Americans traveling than what the NFL had in that
Mhm.
scenario. In Brazil, I'll tell you this, Deuce. In Brazil, for both of those NFL games, the game sold out in less than 2 hours in both instances.
Whew.
So again, the now that was in Sao Paulo, one of the top 10 largest cities in the world, right? Or top
Yeah.
20. But this will be a major opportunity for families in Brazil to just really experience something that they've only ever seen on TV or through the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. And as the season wore on, and Virginia continued to play in these types of games, were you just more and more like, oh, we really got a good one here. We got the
Oh,
school that's going to provide the maximum amount of entertainment.
Deuce, admittedly, I went to the University of Maryland, never thought I'd be cheering for Virginia. I was at the ACC championship cheering, like, let's go, let's win this. So We are very, very feel very fortunate that Virginia is a partner with us in this game, and it's only just going to lead to the excitement, which is going to lead for a better viewing opportunity for fans that maybe don't travel to Brazil but are ready to see a Week Zero matchup and watch their team kick off another successful season.
Man, I'm excited for it. It's going to be an awesome game, I think, because this game wreaked havoc on the college football world in 2025 with it being an out of conference matchup. So this being a home opener again between two longtime ACC teams, I think this is going to be an awesome time for pretty much everyone involved. I'm super excited. When it comes to Brazilian Portuguese. Do we do you know like off the top of your head first down or touchdown or what those terms would be in Brazilian Portuguese?
Deuce, I'm on like lesson 5 of Duolingo. I can order a coffee, cafe con leche, and if I need to put some sugar, con azúcar. It's about as far as I got. So, the language does have some similarities to Spanish.
Mhm.
Call me nerd if you want, but I did take Latin in high school, so I have a little bit of that language luxury there. But not that I was great at it. I really do enjoy like learning it more and more though, and being around it. It is a beautiful language. It's a beautiful culture, and so that's something that is part of the fun of this experience is going to another destination where admittedly a lot of folks speak English, but they're going to be communicating in a different language, and you're going to get that feeling that hey man, I'm somewhere that's really unique. And everyone that is going to be there, I would imagine, is going to have this feeling that I feel very fortunate that I'm here.
Well, and I'm sure there's going to be similarities that people don't even realize that they have. It's every time that I travel somewhere, you realize that people aren't all that different no matter where you go.
That's
One thing
right.
I did find out that was great in Brazilian Portuguese, go who's in Brazilian Portuguese is Vahoos.
That's
So
correct.
if we can
That
get
part,
people
yeah,
to
that
start saying Vahoos, they're just saying Wahoos. The translation is going to be so easy.
the hashtag was just born, Deuce. You just did it. Vahoos is actually absolutely the correct translation that I can confirm. The folks in Brazil are very charismatic. Um, they are very chill and they are looking for a good time. And so those that do come to Brazil, to Rio de Janeiro, if you bring the right energy, they're going to match that energy and they will happily cheer along with you. So if you're coming and wanting to make it a home field advantage for the Cavaliers, for sure, get a bunch of folks to say "Vahoos" with you, and they will be chanting it all night long.
For the fans who are interested in finding out more information about the game, I'm gonna have pretty much everything linked in the description, but where can they find out more about the game?
Yeah, so we have a website, College Football Brazil with an S .us. So we did call it College Football Brazil with an S as an homage to Brazil. That's how they spell it.
Hmm.
Um, on that website, you will find several links. You can find a link specifically for UVA that will outline all the different packages. It even has a video that is narrated by yours truly that will go through the entire offering from what is included in the packages. We pick you up from the airport. We take you to the hotel. We take you to all events on our bus. We'll bring you to the game. Your ticket is included in the package. All the different tourism, if you get the platinum package, for example, you're going to be included in going to Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, the Roxy Dinner Show. So all of that information is explained at collegefootballbrazil.us. And from there, you can make your decision whether you want to buy an individual ticket. We have tickets ranging from a little over $100, I believe $136, which I will say, these upper level seats are some of the better seats. If you get this lower tier of that upper deck,
Uh-huh.
that's as good of a seat in the stadium. But we've got seats ranging from about $136 with all taxes and fees included to about 300 and I think 27 is our most expensive ticket, 50-yard line, midfield. There's obviously suites and all that type of stuff as well. If folks are interested in that. So you can buy individual tickets, you can buy the packages, and then you could also buy experiences a la carte. So let's say you decided to come on the trip. You have an Airbnb. You didn't want to stay with our package. You're going to get yourself to the game, but you do want to come to the tailgate. You can purchase that additionally. So it's all right there on the website. You can also contact Brazil, Brasil, at athleteadvantage.com if you have questions. The VAF, Virginia Athletic Foundation, has obviously been well schooled on this entire experience. They can help you answer questions as well. And we just encourage fans to go take a look, come on down, and give yourself a experience of a lifetime in Rio de Janeiro.
Absolutely. And looking over it when you sent it over to me, the different offerings, guys, you can tailor this to whatever you want to end up doing. You can make it the most maximalist package. You can tailor to exactly what you need. I mean, these guys have been extremely thorough in setting this whole thing up. So if you go with whatever, it's going to end up being an awesome experience.
I, Deuce, I appreciate you saying that and going through that. We wanted a curated experience that was fun, that
Hmm.
was safe, and I will say this: Brazil is safe, but beyond that, we've added security, extra measures, in both private security details that will be riding on the transportation with us, as well as the government support, both from the Brazilian government as well as the U.S. Consulate and the State Department, who are very involved in all of our planning. So we've got a scenario where if you wanted to come watch the game and never kind of float out into the public and still do 5 days of activities, you could.
Hmm.
Or you can come down and meet with our 24-hour concierge at the hotel and say, I want to go hike in the rainforest. I want to go hang gliding. I want to take a boat trip for the day. All of that can be set up throughout this experience. It's really built to your liking.
Another question, Nima, I had about the game. Obviously, Brazil is in the southern hemisphere, and August 29th, that's summer in Americans' eyes. It's starting to turn over towards the fall. What will the weather be like in Rio with the seasons flipped?
Yeah, so it's wintertime in Rio at that time. So you ready? I'm going to make everybody in the Virginia the network a little jealous. Wintertime in Brazil means low 60s, I'm sorry, high 60s, low 70s during nighttime, and then during the day we can get into 80s and 90s. And so, you want to pack maybe a light hoodie for the evening when you're taking a stroll by the beach, but during the day, tank top and shorts is definitely going to be your go-to. Um, Time zone's only a 1 hour difference. I think that's important to note. Like at that time of year, they don't do the spring forward and
Hmm.
roll back the clock. So in August, it'll be a 1 hour time zone shift, but the weather is actually going to be, because we will be in summertime, and how humid the Virginia region gets, it'll
Hmm.
be a very welcomed reprieve. I would imagine the guys on the field will really love it too, just because it won't be as hot and sticky,
Hmm.
and it'll be a nice little brisk breeze. It'll be great.
Everyone's gonna be like I am. I live in Southwest Florida. Most of my family's in Indiana or New York. So, December they'll be in like a foot of snow, and I'll be like, "Oop, I'm at the beach and it's 70." So, and
There'll
the time,
certainly be a lot of people at the beach in Brazil's winter, so that is
yes,
going to be a lot of fun for them.
the time zone thing I think is another super underrated factor in this game. When you see an NFL team, it is a massive difference, going from say playing in Indianapolis and going to play in Berlin or Seattle going to London or shoot even the University of Washington going to play Rutgers in conference. So for Virginia and NC State, this being a 1 hour time difference, I'm sure that's going to make the coaches happier, the players happier, and it'll be easy on fans.
And I'll tell you this, Deuce, we were very eager and keen to figure out a solution to ensure that both teams would be able to get out that night, something that is not necessarily feasible for some of the other international games. But for our game, because Rio de Janeiro is a 24-hour airport, and we do have a lot of alignment with the government and their customs officials, their airport down there, that we'll be able to get the team out that evening so that they can get ready for what will then. Obviously, both teams are going to have a bye week one, but you still got to practice. You still got to get ready for that next game, and so they're going to be able to stay on their schedule as needed.
Man, that's awesome. We ran into that at Virginia for the first time this year. We went out to Cal Berkeley last year, and there was a lot of talk of what's this turn and burn going to look like for an in-conference game. And so I'm sure the coaching staff and the people building out the schedule, Tyler Jones and all them, they're going to be like, "Oh, you mean we can just adjust things by 1 hour? That's perfect."
That's right. That's right.
You know, Nima, you had brothers that went to the University of Virginia, so I can imagine you've been to a certain institution in Charlottesville. We ask one question to every single one of our guests that come on the 4-3-4 defense, and I would argue it's our most important question. Nima, what is your Bodo's Bagels order?
All right. So first of all, I've frequented several institutions of Charlottesville, just to be very frank. I'm a call me a traditionalist. I'm a everything but double the cream cheese and make it as sloppy as possible type of guy. But I like to dabble in it all. I also remember back in the day, maybe dating myself a little bit. Um, there used to be, obviously, the White Spot was a big establishment in Charlottesville, and going to that and having breakfast sandwiches there
Yeah.
both in the morning and at night. So I've enjoyed myself all over Charlottesville, but when it comes down to it, when I get to the front of the line, I'm a traditionalist. I try to keep my order as quick as possible and just get the everything with as much cream cheese as I can.
You can't go wrong with that. I'm an everything bagel guy, so this is good. I've tallied pretty much every single order, and we've had everything ranging from basically sun-dried tomato all the way to plain with butter. It is like
If you're a student at Virginia and you can get there every single day, which why wouldn't you? Now we're talking, okay, let's dabble into some others. But for the out of towner, for the guy that comes only in every so often, you got to start with the traditional, the basic, to really gauge, like, is this a big time bagel? And it is.
yes. This is a totally random question, but I was looking through your background. You were at Fordham
I
as the director
was.
of basketball ops for a year. Did you cross over with Joel Soriano at all?
So he had just transferred to St. John's
Oh,
on
okay.
my way in. Yeah, but big time player. Great player. I was at George Washington University going up against him when he was a freshman, and I think we were part of his coming out party. I think we were the ones that launched his campaign to go on and make it to St. John's.
Me and my brothers went to high school with Joel at Stepinac in White Plains, so we saw Joel coming.
How about the team that they had this past year, and the talent that they've got coming out annually? I mean, that is now a juggernaut of a program and a juggernaut destination of basketball places.
It has been ridiculous. And speaking of amazing players and amazing plays, what would be your favorite Virginia game from last season, having watched more of it probably than you have more in past years?
Well, okay, so you Cavalier fans will like to hear this, but obviously the NC State Virginia game last year was one where we were really kind of holding on the thread. And at that point, we knew that the ball was really in Virginia's court to move this game because it was y'all's home game. So
Mhm.
if you guys win, I don't know if we are having this game, because I'm thinking, okay, like we got, like, because the game may have dissipated when the ACC did all their scheduling
Oh,
realignment. I don't know if that could have happened. We'll never know, but it
mhm.
could it could have. But we knew at that point, like, hey, they're going to want their revenge if they lose. And so our best hope was going to be that that this may be a NC State W. And so I believe it was an interception right there at the very end. It was like, group text in our company, like, oh, they got the INT. Maybe this game can still happen.
Objectively, it was a very good football game, and it ended, and arguably Virginia needed that. I
Now,
think if
for
we,
the UVA side, the Florida State game, pretty awesome, right? Like that was good to get that. And so,
who
you
knows if
you
that game
guys,
happens without the loss to NC State? That's my point because I think we needed that first punch, and then we went on the run after.
this is very true as well. I mean, these are the things that as a season unfolds, you really don't know. And, hey, week 0, we're going to really get an opportunity to see what I believe will be two of the best teams in the ACC this upcoming year. And what an unbelievable opportunity to not only see them play, but right here, watch them all warm up for those 3 hours before kickoff. It's going to be awesome.
That's it's going to be incredible. Fans, come if you're interested for the novelty of the first game in Brazil, for the newness of it all, for the first time of college football game in the Southern Hemisphere, and obviously stay for all the awesome experiences that Nima's outlined. And it seems like it's going to be an awesome experience. And I'm very, very excited to see Virginia go down there and hopefully beat NC State. And start off the year right, man. Nima, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks so much for having us, and Vahoos.
Vahoos.